Good morning. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please help me welcome Sophia with today's announcements.
Good morning, everyone. Today is Tuesday, September 16th, and it's a white day. Don't you love your ID photo? Wouldn't it be great to share it in the yearbook with everyone? If not, maybe you should stop by Fuller Hall during your free block today, Thursday, or Friday between 8:30 and 3 o'clock to have a new photo taken. There is no charge to have your photo taken. Juniors and seniors, New York University and Yale University are on campus today for a visit. Please see Naviance or Mrs. LaBounty for details and to register. Be sure to check in with your teacher before attending. Reminder, please get your Women Can Do permission slips to Mrs. Murphy in Streeter 208 by Friday. Tap into your inner spidey senses and go rock climbing this weekend in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. This trip is free to you and no experience is necessary. See Mr. Holden or Student Life for details. Happy birthday today to Silas Armstrong. Happy birthday. Today for sports, we have boys golf at Allberg Country Club at 4 o'clock. Please dismiss the team at 12. Varsity and JV field hockey, home versus Spalding at 4 o'clock and 5:15. And JV and varsity boys soccer at CVU at 4:30. Please dismiss the teams at 1:15. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you, Sophia. And in case you missed it, today is a white day. We have one late announcement. Varsity girls soccer beat South Burlington 3-0 last week. Avery Gelwicks had 2 goals, assisted by Devlin Murphy and Ellie Reed, followed by a beautiful goal from Leonore Martinez-Quintal, assisted by Olive Anello. Jaden Bunnell had her 3rd consecutive shutout with 4 saves. Congratulations, varsity girls soccer. This morning, it's my privilege to introduce you to the next speaker in our Social Studies speaker series for Constitution Week. This morning, we are joined by Ms. Beck, a St. Johnsbury Academy alum, dorm parent in the Green Dorm, and member of our Social Studies department. Ms. Beck's here to talk to us this morning about the 14th Amendment's Due Process Clause. Please give a warm welcome to Ms. Beck.
All right, good morning, everyone. So I decided today, actually in my sociology or criminology class right now, we are talking about the Constitution and how it applies to society and how we function. So I figured this morning, instead of just talking on, I would get up here and just bring you into our class for the day. So I'm going to treat you as my class this morning. I'm a little nervous because you are the biggest class I've ever taught. But I start off my class, I'm just going to ask, can everyone sit up straight if you're not sitting up straight already? Amazing, thank you so much. Then I would do attendance, but I don't need to submit that yet. But I do want to make sure that my kiddos are listening, because you do have an entrance ticket in class about what I'm talking about this morning. So if you are Paisley, Sam, Will, Lila, Tristan, Zuri, Drago, Lyric, Molly, Isabel, Matt, Zach, Kate, Waylon, Talon, Gracie, Heaven, or Ainsley, make sure you are listening this morning. Everyone else, I encourage you to as well. This is interesting stuff. So in sociology, we learn about how human relationships and institutions work. So it can be as simple as why you just sat up straight when I told you to, why you hold the door for someone, why you walk on the right side of the road. It can be as big as how in society do religion, government, media, family, and all these different institutions interact with each other and work together. Now you're probably thinking, what does this have to do with the Constitution? Well, I look at the Constitution as American society's rule book. Okay? It tells the government and us what the government can do, what we can do, and it protects the relationship between us and the government. So I studied political science at UVM, and I spent a lot of time with the Constitution. What always fascinated me was this little book that's not very long, determines most everything that happens in your daily lives. Okay? It really is about this balance. Society is about balancing government and people. The government works for you, and the Constitution makes sure they are doing things that are going to be best for you. Because as Mr. Eaton talked about yesterday, in history, most times of huge change come from one group in society feeling like their rights aren't equal to other people that they're living with. So usually, moments of change happen when one group finally resists the box they're being put in society, and they push back against the government to where the government has to take action because, like I said, they work for you. So my favorite part of the Constitution, it's actually an amendment, which comes from moments like this in history when we change the Constitution, is the 14th Amendment. This comes post-Civil War because even though slavery was abolished, they still knew that in America, if you were black, you were going to struggle. You were not going to be given equal rights. So they put it in the Constitution to ensure that that happened. So the 14th Amendment says, "No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the U.S., nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process." So what does this large section mean? It means two things. Due process, okay, which you all have. So the government must give people a chance to defend themselves in a fair hearing before infringing on their rights. You have due process every day. You might get a green slip. Maybe you gotta go see Dean Smith, Dean Angel, Dean O'Brien, maybe Mr. Urey, right? Your due process is you get to go, maybe you missed conference period. You get to explain why you missed conference period, and that helps in deciding if you receive punishment or not. You might explain why you did something in the lunchroom, or et cetera, right? So due process is those green slips, it's those meetings, those chances you get to explain what has happened. Equal protection means the laws apply the same to everyone. So they can't say, oh, well, you're a junior. If you're a junior, it's different. We're gonna treat you differently with these rules. If you're a ninth grader, oh, you don't even get the same rules as the upperclassmen, right? That would not be equal protection. Equal protection is no matter what grade you're in, if you're a dorm student, day student, if you're from Vermont, not from Vermont, you all get treated equally in the due process. So, the Supreme Court, what they do is they use the 14th Amendment a lot in cases to determine if something that's happening is unlawful or not. So the Constitution doesn't say anything about major issues going on, right? They have to take the broad language and apply it to very niche specific examples that are going on. And one of the ones I learned about in college that I was most fascinated with was this case called Yickwo v. Hopkins. So in 1880 in San Francisco, they issued that anyone that operated a laundromat or a laundry service had to have this specific permit to run it. So all the people in San Francisco applied for these permits, and at the time, 90% of laundry services in San Francisco were run by Chinese Americans. And every single one of them was denied a permit, 90% of laundry services. So Yickwo and Wo Lee sued the city of San Francisco, and their Supreme Court denied it, so therefore it went up to the National Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court issued that this was a violation of the 14th Amendment because they were being discriminated against because of who they were. And I love this, this comes from the case, it's in the opinion of the court. They say, if it being the law is applied and administered by public authority with an evil eye and an unequal hand, so as practically to make unjust and illegal discriminations between persons in similar circumstances, material to their rights, the denial of equal justice is still within the prohibition of the Constitution. So what is this saying in simple terms? So I asked ChatGPT to put it into terms for us. It basically means if the government applies the law unfairly, the targeting some people but not others who are in the same situation, that's still a violation of the Constitution, even if the law itself is neutral on paper. So that law said nothing about if you were Chinese, you could not have one of these permits, but they were using like this deep subtext of that law to discriminate a group based on race. So it's saying even though the law's never gonna say we're gonna discriminate, right? It's gonna do it subtly and behind the scenes. So the Supreme Court said, nope, that is a violation of the Constitution. You cannot discriminate a group because you feel like it. So what I want you to think about as you go through your day, okay? This amendment says that no person is denied due process, life, liberty, or property without that chance to explain themselves, to go to a court, to speak to a judge, no matter if you are a citizen or not. You are a person and you have this right if you are on our soil. So this applies to every single person in this room. So what I want you to think about throughout your day, what does it mean to have life, liberty, or property? What does liberty mean, right? Is there limits to liberty? Can you limit freedom? Does it depend on the group or who's being talked about? According to the Constitution says no. Okay, any person has this right regardless of who you are and where you come from. Think about, right, if you no longer got those green slips, right? If someone just came in your class and said, oh, you missed conference period, Colby 208 for the day, right? You don't get that chance to explain yourself. That's due process. So go through your day, think about what does life, liberty, and property mean, right? And how would we maybe feel if we were no longer getting those green slips or those chances to explain ourselves? And as I end my class, thank you for your time. Go be kind people. Have a great day.
Thank you, Ms. Beck. I'm going to switch gears a little, and that's about to be funnier to you than it is right now, so stay tuned for how funny that joke gets in just a second. Last week I got an email from Mr. Dusso that read, "My B Block students are working on written instructions for how to repair a flat bike tire this week. I'm looking for anyone who might not have experience with this task to serve as a test user of their instructions, which they are going to revise after this test. I expect it would be no longer than a 30-minute commitment starting at 9:45. Would you be interested in helping?" I responded, "Yes, of course!" exclamation point. I only needed to be someone with absolutely no experience with the task, and I felt completely qualified to be unqualified. When I proudly told my husband about this invitation that night, his response lacked, I think, enthusiasm, and was instead full of questions. Is the tire on a bike? Does the tire have a tube? Is it a new tire or an old tire? I shrugged with each question. I didn't just lack the skills to do this, I didn't even know the right questions to ask. So in my mind, I decided it was going to be even better. I was extra qualified to be unqualified. My husband, being helpful, suggested I could watch YouTube videos or practice on a bike tire at home over the weekend. He said something about a bead lock being hard to break. I stared at him and decided that I would cut my nails so that whatever I was doing with a bead lock, I wouldn't break a nail. It says something when your biggest cheerleader is a little nervous on your own behalf. So yesterday, as I got ready for work, I gave myself a little pep talk. I reminded myself that my complete ignorance about repairing a flat bicycle tire wasn't a problem to fix. It was exactly what would make me a valuable member of that class for the students. That seemed well and good until I was walking from my office to Ranger, when a smidge of nervousness set in. By the time I got to the classroom, I confessed to Mr. Dusso and his students that I was nervous. One student looked at me and said, "What do you have to be nervous about? It's not like this is your way home." Fair enough. Mr. Dusso handed me the packet. It was neatly typed instructions and some reference photos. It was professional and organized. I read step 1. Undo the valve stem, parentheses, place cap in secure spot, and break the bead lock off. Here was the bead lock, but my nails were cut. I successfully removed the cap and put it in my pocket, and that is where my knowledge ran out. "Is there a vocabulary sheet?" I asked. I was only on step 1 and already lost. I think that was the moment that the class realized Mr. Dusso had spared no effort in finding them someone who was extra qualified to be unqualified. I'm choosing to believe that it was gratitude and not, "Holy cow, Dusso, where did you find this fool?" The directions had vocabulary that was completely familiar to everyone in the room, but totally meaningless to me. In that moment, they discovered something really important. Expert knowledge sometimes includes enough vocabulary to seem like a whole language that someone else can't understand. Step 2, remove the bead lock. Place one part of the lever on a spoke and push the lever forward, and it should break the seal between the tire and the bead lock. The picture was somewhat helpful, but the word should, well, that was key. It should break the seal. It should break the seal if you're using the lever properly, which if you're me, you failed to do in several unique ways. At one point, I'm not sure what step I was actually on. I looked up and asked the class, "People actually fix this in the woods?" Mr. Dusso assured me that yes, he'd done this repair in the wilderness, and not only that, he had the gear with him to do it. He just toted around levers and glue patches and all sorts of other things in a pack and did the repair. Then he leveled up and told me that he once fixed a flat bike tire with nothing but leaves. Leaves. Armed with knowledge that Mr. Dusso is some sort of bike repair MacGyver, I felt the need to tell the class that, left to my own devices in the woods, I would surely be eaten by a bear before I could fix the flat tire on my own. Throughout the process, I needed help from both the students and Mr. Dusso. I'm grateful that they were kind, encouraging, and patient. The issues weren't entirely because their direction had gaps, though there might have been one or two. The real revelation, I think, for the students was that the gap between knowing how to do something and being able to teach it to a complete beginner is much larger than they might have expected. When I finally got the tube patched and the wheel reassembled, I felt genuinely proud of myself. I had done it, though I couldn't have done it by myself, and certainly not from the written directions alone. I think my lack of knowledge showed them how crucial information lived in their heads and maybe not in their words. Learning requires a willingness to be confused, to ask questions that might seem obvious, and to persist through the discomfort of not knowing. Yes, I could have watched YouTube videos beforehand, but that shortcut would have changed all of our learning yesterday. My expertise, or lack thereof, brought an authenticity to their experience. I was reminded what it feels like to be genuinely incompetent at something, to have to ask for help with the most basic elements, to struggle with vocabulary and concepts that other people certainly found elementary. The courage to say, "I have no idea," to start from zero, opens learning opportunities that expertise can sometimes close off. The imperfect directions were perfect teachers because they forced everyone in the room to think about the real challenges of communication and learning. Sometimes the best education doesn't come from having the right answers, but from discovering the right questions. Because I know that all good stories come full circle, there's another pun for you. See what I did there? Last night, my husband went out for a bike ride before I got home from work. When he returned, he walked in the door and announced that he'd gotten a flat tire while riding, the first flat he'd had in 2 years. And it was, in fact, his ride home. I didn't offer to help him repair it. He was probably just fine without any help from me. And with that, I wish you a great day, faculty.